How's it going? My name is Mike Riding, as Tobias mentioned. I'm from Workfront. Workfront is based in Utah. Happy to be out here. I've done a few of these digital marketing summit sessions and digital summit sessions, and I really like it because the topic is something that's near and dear to me. As we talked about with Seth, authenticity, consistency. The work we do is one of those things that is consistent. It's with us every day. And one of the things that I love about the company that I currently work for is I feel like we get to make a difference. And we all work, and it has such an impact on kind of our satisfaction with life, really. If we have a good day at work, we go home, we have a good day at home. And it's hard to keep those two separate. In fact, nearly impossible these days. But let's jump into it. So I'm here to talk about how we work. If I were at home, we'd be talking about Chip and Joanna games. Actually, I'd be listening about Chip and Joanna games. We wouldn't be talking about it, I'd be listening. Maybe talking about plant babies, which is a thing. I didn't know plant babies were a thing, but they are. You get a plant, name it, take care of it. Or I have a new puppy. Maybe we'd be talking about my new puppy. But we're gonna talk about work today. We don't really like to think about how we work. We just do what's on fire, right? We've got this guy here in the picture with the flaming head and then the other guy that's burned out. We do what's on fire, we oil the squeaky wheel, and we just do the stuff that's in front of us, the stuff that's on the table, the stuff that seems urgent and perhaps not important. We, at Workfront, for 6 years running now, we create this report. We do a lot of research and a lot of interviews, and we create a report called The State of Work. And we've consistently discovered that even though we're all just doing the work that gets thrown at us, we're still being asked, 64% of us are being asked to come up with new ways of working, right? Optimize, innovate, do more with less. My favorite is at the end of the quarter. I'm a digital marketer, like a lot of you. I love at the end of the quarter when the boss says, hey, we're a little low on those leads, we're a little low on MQLs. Could you just, find a way to kind of crank out a few more right at the end of the quarter for the sales team? And it's like mind explodes. What do you think I've been trying to do this whole entire time? It's not like I've been coasting. And so we're constantly being asked to come up with new ways of working, right? So what do? A lot of you have seen this. We throw technology at the problem. There are lots of businesses up here. This is Scott Brinker's. He's been doing this for many years now. And if you've been watching it over the years, it just proliferates, right? More and more and more technology. And if we throw technology at a problem, or if we get technology without a strategy for how we're going to use it, it just creates more problems, right? 58% of us feel like we don't have any time to innovate, that we can't think beyond our to-do list. 56% of us, we just are feeling so overwhelmed that we can't meet our deadlines. And so I love this image here. This guy's juggling a flaming baton, chainsaws, bombs that are going to go off, and even a lobster. I guess that's appropriate. Maybe that was thrown in for our Boston session today. So when we do things the way that we've always done them, we've got Guy Fieri here, right? Who knows what I'm going to put up next? 10 years later, Guy Fieri. When we do things the way that we've always done them, not much changes, right? Things don't change, they don't improve. However, sometimes things around us change that we really have no control over. Some of you may recognize this. This is Robert Smith of The Cure, frontman. This is my era, dates me a little bit, but Robert Smith, for the last 30 years, has not changed either. And for him, it's not working out so well because things outside of his own control are changing. And so he needs to change with it. Poor Robert. I love that guy. Just someone could talk to him about his image, it would be helpful. So if we can change a few simple things about how we work, we'll get better at the what. We'll be able to make the most of our time. 40% of us say that our job is spent on, only 40% of our job is spent on what we were hired to do. So the goal is to reclaim and protect more of our time for things like this. This is my family, that's my wife, my kids. And this is southern Utah. I live in Utah. There's plenty of places to explore. This is what I like to do. I like to get out. I like to explore. Perhaps you want more time for those romantic walks on the beach, right? With that significant other. Perhaps you want to start that new, very short-lived hobby of yours. Or really, where we all come together is we want more of this, right? This is really why we want to do better at our jobs, so we can have more of that. So with that introduction behind, let me talk about 4 simple ways that we can get more work done, 4 tips. So the first is to provide structure that supports creativity and innovation. I want you to raise your hand. Let's vote. Raise your right hand if you feel like process kills creativity and innovation. Does process kill your creativity and innovation? That's a bad idea, but I'm going to, because the lights are so bright, I can't see how many people are raising their hands. But let's do it again anyway, just for audience participation. Raise your left hand if you're left-brained or right-brained, you feel like the lack of process kills creativity and innovation. Okay, we got a lot of people in here from that. That's great. So let's take a look at what process killing creativity and innovation looks like. So I love my graphic design team. They have built me an image of a water sausage. I couldn't figure out what this was other than a factory, this mechanism that makes water sausages. And I guess that's a little blurry for you guys, but you've got a guy back here doing QA on the water sausage, making sure that it meets code. But what the people here are saying is, this is complicated. This process is complicated. There's too much paperwork. There's so many hoops to jump through. Some of this is irrelevant at this point. There's too many steps. There's too much micromanagement going on. And the biggest one is it's outdated. This process that we have is just outdated at this point. These are some of the complaints that you'll hear with a lot of process in place. On the other hand, if you feel like lack of process kills creativity and innovation, you're our friend here who's juggling a lobster, right? And he is left with asking the question, what next? Like, I don't have time to think about what comes next. I don't have time to innovate because I'm thinking about what I'm going to do in the now since I don't have a process in place. So the key then is balance, right? Too much, too little process, they're both problematic. So we're looking for the appropriate organizational structures with just enough process, but not too much process to unlock our time to be strategic and to have that creativity and time for innovation. So my recommendation is to examine your workflows. Document what you're doing. Be scientific about it. Get granular with what you're doing. Write it out. And then you'll discover, here's where we're failing. Here's where this is not working. Or here's where we're overly redundant on certain things. You only know that when you begin to write it out, when you begin to examine the routine. So, taco fans out there, lots of good tacos in Utah, lots of great Mexican food out there. We've been building tacos all wrong, right? When you make a taco, hard shell or soft shell, what do you put in first? I'm hearing conflicting things out there. Meat, okay, meat's the main one. I think meat is what usually comes up. Why do you put the meat in first? Does anybody know why you put the meat in first? I don't, but it's what I do. Yes? Okay, it's the highest value, right? So let's get the highest value in there. It's going to be kind of surrounded. We feel like it's secure because it went in first. I get it. That makes sense. So a genius, an internet genius, built the taco build guide. And this person's recommendation was put the cheese. I heard some people say cheese. Give yourselves a pat on the back if you said put cheese in first. You put the cheese in first, maybe throw it in the microwave, kind of create this foundation, this support structure for when you do put the meat in, it doesn't get oily and gross and fall apart. You would never know how to build a taco if you didn't one day sit down and write out, here's how I'm going to build a taco. This is my taco building process. Oh my gosh, I'm putting the meat in first. That's ridiculous. So document what you're doing. This is an actual documentation of building a piece of content. This is an asset of ours. 3 types of silos killing your marketing team. When our content team put together their structure of how are we getting things to market, they discovered that they had way too many rounds of review and approval. They had way too many rounds of external approval and way too many rounds of cover design and other things. You can see the numbers there, 6 and 4. That was too much. And they were able to slim that down. And up in the top right corner there, you can see the current, our template, our process for building an asset is now 44 days. And I don't know about your organizations, perhaps you're better, perhaps that's a long time for you or not long enough. For us, that was really good. We were able to shave off about a month of time in creating a new piece of content if we documented the process and were able to slim it up in certain places. So the goal there, rinse, lather, and repeat, right? Reduce your effort with templates, know what you need to iterate on, and then make improvements as you go. Here's the next tip. Make collaboration easier. And within this, I've got 2 pieces of advice. The first is create an intake process that works for you. Know where your requests are coming from, and then have a place where you put them and have an understanding of what's going to happen with those requests once you receive them, and deliver on that. So if your goal is to become a more strategic thinker in your organization, a trusted resource, even job security, then the more that you establish SLAs, service level agreements, and you meet those, then you become that trusted source of somebody who gets work done and gets it done well. That can't happen unless you're examining how you're getting work requests and what's happening to them afterwards. A few simple tips. It can be as simple as having an email address where all work is sent. You don't need big, heavy, high horsepower project management solutions to do this. Just an email address. You can have a shared form where people submit requests. If you're managing the work, put it in a shared document, and to maintain all of the work so people can see what you're working on, have it in a shared folder. These are really simple. We've got a lot of SMBs out here who don't have huge resources to go out and get certain digital tools. These are things that you can do tomorrow to make your intake process better. Of course, I recommend leveraging technology, but it can be free. It can be Google Forms. They are little free miracles that enable you to consolidate all of those intake, all the requests that you have for the work that you do. Here's my second piece of advice. Make your meetings count, right? Have lean meetings. Don't have meetings that just turn into status updates. That's a waste of time. If you're leading a meeting, come with a purpose, come with objectives, and walk out of the room knowing what are our next steps. What's the follow-up? What are we going to do next? We just spent 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 2 hours together. What next? If you're in the meeting as a participant, participate in the meeting. Don't just show up and sit in the back. You introverts out there, a lot of digital introverts, right? Get outside yourself and participate. Make that meeting count. Why do we have meetings? Participation time. Why do we have meetings? I once did this and the guy in the back said, to suck our souls is why we have meetings. Why do we have meetings? Collaborate? Okay, thanks. It's Brett, right? Thanks, Brett. Brett lives in Hawaii, everybody. What's that?
It's a brainstorm.
It's a brainstorm. I love it. Yes. Collaborate, brainstorm. Get people on the same page. Good. There are 5 that I've documented. The first is to give information. You have a meeting to give people information, and you have meetings to get information. If you know the objective of your meeting is to get information, and you don't feel like you're getting that information, participate, ask questions, and get the information that you need. We talked about this one too, or somebody mentioned this, develop options, brainstorm. And on the flip side is to make decisions. So if you're in a meeting and somebody's brainstorming, and it's a brainstorming meeting, and somebody starts to make decisions on those, you can back up and say, that's not what we're here to do today. We're here to just brainstorm options, and we'll have another meeting where we make decisions on those options. And the final one, which nobody mentioned, but I love it, is warm, magical human contact. It's a thing, right? Relationships are a thing. Even with dispersed workforces, those either video conferences, even better if you can be face-to-face in the same room, having warm, magical human contact is an objective of meetings. And if that is the overall kind of umbrella of your meeting, and some of these other objectives are getting a little derailed, but you have a goal to make human contact and connection, that's a fair and appropriate reason to have a meeting. I can't take credit for these. These come from David Allen, one of my heroes. He wrote Getting Things Done many years ago, so go check it out. David Allen, Getting Things Done. One of my favorite things that a boss ever told me was, feel free to not accept every meeting that you're invited to. Feel free to say no. I trust you to say no to the meetings that you don't feel are relevant, are critical to what you're trying to accomplish. So I'm going to show you a calendar and give you some tips on what you can reject. Here's a pro tip. Every calendar that I've ever seen has the option to change the default meeting times. This is a Google Calendar screenshot. The default is 60 minutes, right? If you change it to 30 minutes, when you're setting that meeting, you have to think, do I need more time than 30 minutes? And you will be everybody's best friend. Everybody's best friend if you set shorter meetings, 25-minute meetings, 30-minute meetings, instead of the traditional 60-minute meeting blocks. So do this today. Also, make sure that you schedule time with yourself. Schedule meetings for yourself to schedule meetings. Schedule meetings with yourself to get real work done. So here's a calendar of what it might look like, and that might be a little blurry for you guys to read. But first, ad hoc meeting with no agenda. Just decline that. Just say no to no agendas. Or I guess you could be polite and say, can you tell me what this meeting is about? Can you tell me what we're going to talk about so I can decide if I need to come or not? What do you do in 30-minute gaps between meetings? Like, does anybody do anything productive in those 30-minute gaps between meetings? Nobody does. Perhaps there's, getting a little snack, and I guess that's productive, but you can't get into a flow, right? You can't get into the deep work in 30 minutes. So if you can avoid that, if you're scheduling some of these, crunch those two together. Sudden meetings that just pop up, you're in your flow there, you've got this great block of white space, and all of a sudden a meeting comes up, feel free to ask for that to be rescheduled. Feel free to ask for that to be rescheduled. And block out some time for yourself, as I mentioned earlier. And then also, as I mentioned, make sure that you set time for you to review and prep for the week. I have what do I call it? I think I call it my Zen meeting. It's every Monday morning at 7:30 when I can find time to kind of plan what I'm going to do for the rest of the week. All right, the third one is streamline the review and approval process. So how many of you, again, audience participation, raise your hands if you have more than 5 rounds of review. That's a lot, right? But it happens. There are those of you out there who have that. In fact, the majority of you have more than 5 rounds of review. And that can be in content creation, it can be in process and project approval, whatever it is for you, you're going through way too many rounds of review. In fact, 14% of you have 10 or more rounds of review. This is just bordering on crazy making, right? This many rounds of review is certainly overboard in almost any situation. We call this the merry-go-round effect, right? This is when it just goes around and around. And here's the problem, or here's why the merry-go-round effect happens, is because there's not a good project scope put in place in the first place. You don't know the purpose, you don't know the scope, you don't know what you're trying to achieve. I have a guy on my team who says, what does success look like? And I love that question. What does success look like for this project? If we can define what success looks like, then maybe we'll be able to define who and how many people need to approve of the work that we're trying to do. So this is an ad. This is a LinkedIn ad that we ran recently. And this is the final deliverable, right? We've got the copy, we've got the imagery. It's good, it's packaged up, we like it. So we want this to be approved. Once it's done, so the copywriting's done, this is a copywriting approval stream. It's kicked off when the ad is marked as complete. And here's the key. It goes to Karina and Jernay. Sorry, I'm pointing at my screen. I should point at your screen. It goes to Karina and Jernay. With Karina and Jernay, Karina's the manager, Jernay is one of our copywriters, our brand monitors. Only one decision is required. It's been determined that in this case with a LinkedIn ad, the director does not need to approve this. It's not that critical that a director spends his or her time on it. Now, if Karina gets to it before Jernay, that's great. She can approve it. But if not, Jernay is more than welcome to jump on it and approve it. Once Jernay approves it, or Karina, in this next section, I'm the channel manager, my friend Nathan is the campaign manager. Both of us need to approve it. It's been determined that once the final is done and ready to go and looking like it needs to look, then you have an approval from channels and campaigns. If this doesn't work out, you can barely see it, but it says if rejected, then it goes back to in progress. This is a really slimmed down approval stream. It's one copywriter, a channel manager, and a campaign manager, and we get to move forward with it. So one way to do that, or a way to be more efficient, is to proof in just one place. This is a pitch for digital proofing. There are a lot of great digital proofing tools out there. It enables you to have audit trails of what you're working on. It can prevent rework. It can prevent confusion. Only 40% of us are using digital proofing at this point, but it really can help you get your assets to market faster. So finally, measure what matters. We don't work anymore on construction lines for the most part, right? It's hard to measure how many widgets were produced in a certain amount of time in the kind of work that we do. We're knowledge workers. And as we all know, what gets measured gets improved. Peter Drucker said that. I love looking up and seeing who should we actually attribute this famous saying to. And this probably comes from a philosopher and mathematician named Rheticus from the 16th century. It makes sense why a mathematician would say what gets measured gets improved. Do you often feel, I know I do, and I'm assuming a lot of you feel like an accidental project manager. You've got these projects that you're trying to complete, and it feels like what you do in a good portion of your time is just track the progress on those and track who's getting the work done and how quickly it's getting done. It's hard, I know, but highly recommended to continue with that kind of discipline to track what you're working on. This enables you to say no when you need to. It enables you to know what your team can produce. We worked with this is just a chart here. Knowing your team's capacity is something we'll talk about in a minute too, so I'm going to skip through that. We worked with a creative services company we worked with a creative services team at the Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. And they felt like that they were overwhelmed. They felt like they had so many requests coming in. And we said, let's just start with documenting where you're getting your requests. Be that accidental project manager and document where you're getting your requests. And you can see the big pink there says foundation and fundraising. There's never enough funds, right? Never enough funds. So of course they have the most. Second, of course, is the marketing and communications. Those marketers always just asking for more. They're insatiable. But when they were able to show this to upper management, they were able to get more resources that they needed. We had a similar project with Salesforce, where, it wasn't our project. We had a conversation with Salesforce and their customer briefing center. Initially, they had 3 customers coming in occasionally, and they had very few resources, three staff members. And as they were able to show all of the different requests to have customers come in, that quickly went from 3 to 10 to 20, and the team just continued to scale as they were able to be that accidental project manager to show everything that they were working on. Our platform is a work management platform. We have roughly 467 million hours of time logged in the platform. So no PII or anything here, but we see what people are working on and how quickly they're putting that stamp of completed on it. And our CEO, Alex Shootman, he wrote a book called Done Right. And 2 of our mantras at Workfront are get it done and do it right. And so merging those together, done right. And part of the book is 5 metrics that we call work performance indicators. As I mentioned before, we're not working on lines anymore, and it's harder to measure exactly what is success and what is not success, what is failure in the knowledge work that we do. But we've got it slimmed down to 5 things that if we can measure these 5 things will really help us get more work done. The first is the mix, and the mix is 2 things, maintenance and growth, right? So if you are in a mode of maintaining, this is work that keeps things running. There's a lot of analogies for this, right? Keeping the ship afloat, fly the plane as you're building it, just work that keeps things running. On the flip side, there's growth work that enables change, innovation, new opportunities. And looking at both of these and seeing what the mix is between the 2 enables you to know if you are on the path to meeting whatever organizational or departmental or individual contributor goal that you have out there. The second one is your capacity. I showed you a calendar before. If you're a team manager, one of the ways to measure capacity is to just have a calendar and have access to how much the calendar is booked out on your team. But what you're trying to get to is, can we take on new work? And do we have the bandwidth to do the work that is being requested of us and get towards our goals? So if you can measure the capacity, you begin to get a feeling for what's happening on the team. The next one is the velocity. How long is it taking you to do the work that's being requested of you? How quickly are you getting work out the door? And how often are you meeting the deadlines that were set forth or originally committed? Finally, the fourth one is quality. And the quality here is important. It's the perception of the quality of your work within the organization. How does your organization feel about your work? How does the final product match the client's expectations? And then just as importantly, are you, our team members, are you satisfied with the quality of the work? If you're not happy with the quality of the work that you're creating, it's going to lead to low engagement, which is the fifth one. In today's world where there's a lot of opportunities, right? You put digital on your resume and that's a great thing. It's a tough job market out there for companies that are trying to retain talent and find the best talent and keep that talent around. And so engagement is a huge thing it's measurable. And there's a few things that you want to measure. There's a few things that will indicate if there's engagement. First, do people understand their role? Do they know what their job is? Second, do they believe that role matters? Do you really believe like your role matters within the organization? If you don't believe that your role matters within the organization, you're going to get frustrated, you're going to feel jaded, you're going to feel unimportant. And are you proud of the work that you do? You can discover the answer to those three things with two questions. Did you understand what was expected of you? And did your work make a difference to the organization? Asking those two questions will let you know where people stand, if they understand their role, if they understand that their role matters and believe that it matters, and if they're proud of the work that they're doing. And that will be a strong indication of engagement of your teams. I'd add a third question on there too, is do you believe that the work that your organization does matters? That's kind of the cherry on top, right? Unfortunately, we all don't get to, there's a lot of good things out there in the industry and in the business world that we do because it's critical for overall, just the running of the economy. But if you can find a way to understand how that is impacting for the greater good, then engagement goes up. So to review, in summary, number one, provide the right structure. Have just enough balance, but not too much balance. Number two, make collaboration easier. Be better at not meeting. Be better at having meetings with purposes. Number three, streamline your review and your approval process. And fourth, measure what matters. Measure the engagement, measure the capacity, measure the velocity of the work that you're doing, and help people know that the work that they're doing is good. So to conclude, please stop by our booth. You can enter to win a set of Bose headphones. A lot of this content comes from this asset that you can find at bit.ly modern-marketers. But finally, we have a few books that we'd like to give away, those Done Right books from our CEO, Alex Schutman. So we've got a limited amount, so please stop by our booth and we'll get you some books. I appreciate you being here, and it's been great to be with you today. Thank you.